The old stopwatch ticked steadily in Maddie's trembling hands. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Nathan's calm voice broke through her panic as Olivia Winters stood frozen behind the pillar, watching the janitor she'd never truly seen before save her daughter from a crisis she hadn't known how to handle. In the pre-dawn darkness of a small Boston apartment, Nathan Reed moved with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd long ago memorized his morning routine. The coffee maker gurgled as he expertly flipped pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, his 8-year-old daughter Harper's current obsession. Through the window, the city was just beginning to stir, streetlights still glowing against the fading night. 3 years since Elizabeth's passing, and he'd mastered the art of being both mother and father, though the weight of it showed in the fine lines around his eyes and the slight slope of his shoulders when he thought no one was looking. "Daddy, can I wear my space shirt today?" Harper's voice pulled him from his thoughts as she padded into their tiny kitchen, hair still tousled from sleep. "The one with the astronaut cat?" "Absolutely," Nathan smiled, setting a plate of pancakes before her. "Big day today? That science project's due, right?" Harper nodded eagerly between bites. "Miss Parker says if it's good enough, I might get to enter the district competition." Nathan felt a familiar surge of pride mixed with anxiety. The project had required materials they could barely afford, hours of work squeezed between his custodial shifts at Horizon Dynamics and his online electronics courses. He checked the clock. 5:45. "Time to launch, Space Commander." "Teeth brushed, backpack ready in 10 minutes? Roger that." Harper saluted with sticky fingers. By 7:15, he'd dropped Harper at her elementary school and pulled into the employee lot of Horizon Dynamics, a gleaming 40-story testament to technological innovation where he spent his days invisible, pushing mop buckets and emptying trash cans. The employee badge hanging from his neck read maintenance staff, a far cry from the electrical engineering specialist title he'd held during his military service. But that life had ended when Elizabeth got sick, when medical bills mounted, when a single father with no local family needed stability more than career prestige. Nathan entered through the service entrance, nodding to the security guard who barely glanced up. In the maintenance locker room, he changed into his gray uniform and gathered his cleaning supplies. Each day followed the same pattern: start on the executive floor while the offices were still empty, work down to the engineering departments, break for lunch at 11:30, finish with common areas in the afternoon. He'd become expert at moving through spaces without being seen, at making messes disappear without anyone noticing he'd been there at all. On the 40th floor, the executive offices gleamed with modern minimalism: all glass, steel, and strategic lighting designed to showcase the company's cutting-edge aesthetic. As Nathan methodically wiped fingerprints from the glass conference room walls, he caught glimpses of the morning news playing silently on the massive screen inside. A weather alert scrolled across the bottom: severe thunderstorms expected by afternoon. He made a mental note to text Harper's after-school program, making sure they knew to keep the kids indoors. The elevator pinged, and Nathan instinctively stepped back, making himself scarce as Olivia Winters strode onto the floor. At 37, the CEO of Horizon Dynamics commanded every room she entered today in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, her dark hair swept into an immaculate updo, her expression focused with the intensity that had earned her both admiration and fear throughout the company. Behind her trailed her personal assistant, tablet in hand, rattling off the day's schedule. The board presentation is at 10, followed by the call with Tokyo investors at 11:15. The engineering team needs 15 minutes on the server cooling system update, and your daughter's science presentation is at 3 at Oakwood Prep. "I can't make it to Maddie's thing," Olivia cut in without breaking stride. "Schedule a car service for her. Make sure they know to wait if it runs late." "But Miss Winters, you told Madison you'd try too." "I said I'd try. The Tokyo call could run long, and we need those investors. Maddie will understand." The slight tightening of her jaw suggested she didn't entirely believe her own words. Nathan kept his head down, spraying glass cleaner on an already spotless surface. He'd learned long ago that being invisible had its advantages. People spoke freely around the janitor, as though he were merely another piece of furniture. In 3 years, he'd never heard Olivia Winters mention her daughter without that same note of conflicted guilt in her voice. "Shall I send flowers to the school? For Madison?" the assistant suggested carefully. Olivia paused at her office door. "Number. That would be worse, somehow. Just make sure the driver gets her home safely afterward." She disappeared into her office, ending the conversation. Nathan finished the executive floor and headed downstairs. His mind lingered on the exchange he'd overheard. He thought of Harper's face whenever he managed to show up for school events, that pure, unfiltered joy. He wondered if the CEO's daughter still looked at her mother that way, or if disappointment had become the more familiar expression. 8:45 found Nathan cleaning the massive marble lobby of Horizon Dynamics. Rain had started falling earlier than predicted, sending employees hurrying through the revolving doors, with dripping umbrellas and squeaking shoes. He positioned the yellow caution signs and worked methodically to keep the floors dry despite the constant influx of water. A small commotion near the security desk caught his attention. A girl about 10 years old stood clutching a large poster board, her school uniform already damp from the rain. Even from a distance, Nathan could see her rapid breathing, the slight tremble in her hands. The security guard was speaking into his phone, presumably calling up to the executive offices. The girl Maddie, Nathan realized, stepped away from the desk and leaned against a marble column. Her face had gone pale, her breathing increasingly erratic. Nathan recognized the signs immediately. He'd experienced enough panic attacks after returning from his last deployment to know one when he saw it. Setting his mop aside, he approached carefully. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching to meet her eye level. "Looks like that's getting a bit heavy. Mind if I help you hold it?" Maddie's eyes darted to him, wide with distress. I can't breathe right," she whispered. "My presentation, I'm going to mess it all up." Nathan nodded understandingly. "That happens to the best of us. I've got something that might help." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old-fashioned stopwatch, its silver casing worn from years of handling. "This is my lucky charm. When things get overwhelming, it helps me remember to breathe." Behind them, unnoticed by either, Olivia Winters had emerged from the elevator, her expression shifting from impatience to confusion at the sight of her daughter talking to the janitor. She stepped behind a nearby column, watching. "Here's the trick," Nathan continued, pressing the stopwatch into Maddie's small hand. "Click it and breathe in for 5 seconds. Click it again and breathe out for 5. It's like magic, your body can't panic when you're breathing slow and steady." Maddie looked dubious but tried it anyway. Click. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Click. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After the third cycle, her shoulders began to relax, her breathing steadying. "That's it," Nathan encouraged. "My daughter uses this before every test. It's how I got through some scary moments too, back when I was a soldier." "You were a soldier?" Maddie asked, momentarily distracted from her anxiety. "Sure was. And let me tell you, giving presentations to commanding officers? Way scarier than school." That earned him a small smile. "You know what else helps? Imagining everyone in the audience is a friendly penguin." A jiggle escaped her. "Penguins? Absolutely. Very attentive listeners, penguins. Can't clap, though flippers." He demonstrated, flapping his arms slightly, and Maddie's giggle grew stronger. From her hiding spot, Olivia watched in astonishment. She'd spent thousands on child psychologists who'd failed to help Maddie with her anxiety, yet here was this janitor with his battered stopwatch and penguin jokes, somehow breaking through where everyone else had failed. She felt a strange mixture of gratitude and something uncomfortably like shame. "Miss Winters?" Her assistant had appeared beside her. "Tokyo is calling early. They're hoping to start now." Olivia hesitated, watching as her daughter handed the stopwatch back to the janitor, who shook his head and closed her fingers around it. "Keep it for today," Nathan was saying. "You can give it back after your presentation knocks those penguins right off their icy feet." "But isn't it your lucky charm?" Maddie asked. "The luck works better when it's shared," he replied with a wink. "That's the secret." Olivia stepped forward, making her presence known. "Madison, I see you made it safely." Both Maddie and Nathan looked up, startled. The janitor immediately straightened, backing away with a respectful nod. "Mom. You came down." Maddie's face lit up, then quickly composed itself, as though remembering she was supposed to be more dignified. "I mean, hi. Yes, the car service dropped me off. I have a call starting, but I wanted to wish you good luck." Olivia glanced at Nathan, then back to her daughter. "I see you've made a friend." "Oh, this is..." Maddie faltered, realizing she didn't know the janitor's name. "Nathan Reed, ma'am. Maintenance." He gave a small, almost military nod. "Just helping out with some pre-presentation jitters." "Well, thank you, Mr. Reed." Olivia's tone was polite but dismissive. "Madison, the security team will make sure you get to school on time." She checked her watch. "I should go." "That call." "It's okay, Mom. I know it's important." Maddie's brave face couldn't quite hide her disappointment. Nathan saw something flicker in Olivia's eyes, regret, perhaps, or frustration with herself. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual composed efficiency. "Good luck with your presentation." Olivia squeezed her daughter's shoulder briefly before turning toward the elevator. Call me when you're done. After she'd gone, Maddie looked down at the stopwatch in her hand. Does your daughter have presentations today too? Science project judging, Nathan confirmed with a smile. She made a model of the Mars rover out of recycled parts. Cool, Maddie said. My project is about stress responses in the brain. That's why. She gestured vaguely at herself, acknowledging her earlier panic. Sounds like you're the perfect researcher, then. First-hand experience. This made her smile again. Thanks for the stopwatch, mister. Nathan is fine. Thanks, Nathan. She straightened her shoulders, clutching the poster board with renewed determination. I think I'm ready for those penguins now. As Nathan watched her walk away with the security escort, he couldn't help wondering what Olivia Winters would think if she knew her daughter's science project essentially mirrored his own ongoing battle with post-traumatic stress. The reason he carried that stopwatch, everywhere. He returned to his mop, once again invisible to the executives and employees hurrying through the lobby, unaware that events were already in motion that would soon shatter that invisibility forever. The morning progressed with its usual rhythm until just after 9, when Nathan noticed an unusual flurry of activity on the engineering floors. As he emptied trash bins in the hallway, snippets of urgent conversation reached him. Temperatures still climbing in server room 2. The backup cooling system should have kicked in automatically. If we can't get it stabilized in the next hour, we'll have to shut down the entire cluster. Nathan paused, his attention caught by the concern in the engineers' voices. Horizon's primary business was cloud computing and data services. Their server infrastructure was the heart of the company. He'd spent enough time cleaning those rooms to know the elaborate cooling systems that kept the massive computers from overheating. Ryan Pearson, the chief technology officer, emerged from a conference room, surrounded by a group of anxious-looking engineers. Tall and perpetually impatient, Pearson had a reputation for brilliant solutions and terrible people skills. I don't care what you have to do, he was saying sharply. If those servers go down during the Tokyo presentation, we can kiss that investment goodbye. Get maintenance to check the physical systems while you keep working on the software side. One of the engineers glanced at Nathan. Sir, there's a maintenance guy right here. Pearson barely looked at Nathan. Great. You go check the server room cooling systems. Make sure everything's plugged in or whatever it is you people do. Nathan nodded, keeping his expression neutral, despite the dismissive tone. Yes, sir. Server room 2, obviously, Pearson replied, already turning back to his team. And be careful in there. Those servers cost more than you make in a decade. As Nathan made his way to the server room, he reflected on how people like Pearson saw him not as a former military tech specialist with electronics training, but as you people, the invisible hands that emptied trash and cleaned toilets. It had bothered him at first, that reduction of his identity. Now he mostly found it darkly amusing, occasionally useful. The server room hummed with the sound of hundreds of machines processing data. Normally kept at a precise 68 degrees, today the space felt noticeably warmer. The digital thermometer on the wall confirmed his suspicion. 78 degrees and rising. Nathan moved methodically through his inspection, checking the obvious issues first. The primary cooling units appeared to be functioning, their indicator lights glowing green, but the room continued to warm. As he made his way along the raised floor panels, Nathan noticed something unusual, a faint odor that didn't belong among the typical smells of electronics and cold air. He knelt down, following his nose to a section of flooring near the back corner, where the cooling system's pipes ran beneath. Pressing his palm against the panel, he felt something that concerned him even more, warmth, and the slightest hint of moisture. Nathan returned to the engineering floor, where the situation had escalated. Olivia Winters had now joined the group around Pearson, her expression severe. We're approaching critical temperature, Miss Winters, Pearson was explaining. If we don't solve this in the next 90 minutes, we'll have to initiate emergency shutdown. The Tokyo demonstration would be impossible. That is not an option, Olivia replied coldly. Those investors represent 30% of our expansion funding. Find a solution. Nathan stepped forward, clearing his throat. Excuse me, ma'am, Mr. Pearson. I think there might be a leak in the cooling system's liquid pipes under the floor. Back corner, section F20. All eyes turned to him with varying degrees of surprise. Pearson's expression quickly hardened to dismissal. Did anyone ask for your diagnosis? We have actual engineers working on this. Ryan. Olivia cut in sharply. At this point, I'll listen to anyone with a potential solution. She turned to Nathan. You're sure about this? Not 100%, ma'am, Nathan answered honestly. But there's moisture and heat coming from that section of flooring, and I can smell glycol. Glycol? One of the younger engineers asked. It's a component in some liquid cooling systems, Nathan explained. Has a slightly sweet smell when heated. Pearson rolled his eyes. And our janitor is suddenly an expert on cooling systems? Nathan kept his focus on Olivia. I worked on similar systems during my military service, ma'am. Electronic warfare equipment required intensive cooling in desert deployments. Something in Olivia's expression shifted, a slight narrowing of her eyes, a reevaluation. Check that floor section, she ordered the engineering team. Now. 2 engineers hurried to comply while Pearson fumed silently. Nathan stepped back, returning to his maintenance cart, prepared to fade back into invisibility now that he'd said his piece. But Olivia's voice stopped him. Mr. Reed, was it? Please stay. If you're right, we may need your expertise. Within 20 minutes, the floor panels had been removed, revealing exactly what Nathan had suspected. A hairline fracture in one of the main cooling pipes, slowly leaking coolant and compromising the entire system. The revelation sent the engineering team into overdrive, but with a new problem. The custom parts needed for a proper repair would take at least a day to arrive, and the system couldn't wait that long. The crisis meeting reconvened in the main conference room, with Nathan unexpectedly included. He stood awkwardly near the back wall, still in his gray maintenance uniform, as executives and engineers debated increasingly desperate solutions. We could try to divert all essential processes to the backup facility in Providence, one engineer suggested. That would take at least 3 hours to reconfigure, and the demonstration is in less than 2, another countered. What about ice? Literally filling the underfloor with ice to buy us time? This came from a young engineer, earning him scornful looks from his colleagues. As the debate grew increasingly heated, Nathan found himself examining the schematics of the cooling system displayed on the conference room screen. The solution seemed obvious to him, but he hesitated, remembering Pearson's earlier dismissal. Then he thought of Harper, of the lessons he tried to teach her about speaking up even when afraid. "Excuse me," he said, his voice firmer than before. Surprisingly, the room quieted. You could create a temporary bypass using standard parts. Reroute the coolant flow around the damaged section with pressure-rated PVC and commercial-grade pumps. It wouldn't be pretty, but it would hold until the proper parts arrive. Pearson scoffed. Commercial-grade parts for a multi-million-dollar system? That's your solution? In the field, we often had to improvise with what was available, Nathan replied evenly. This isn't so different from when our cooling systems failed in Kandahar. The principle is the same: move the heat away from the sensitive equipment by any means necessary. Olivia, who had been silently observing, suddenly stood. How quickly could this bypass be assembled? With the right parts, less than an hour, Nathan answered. Most of what you need is probably already in the maintenance department. And you could build this? She pressed. Yes, ma'am. Olivia looked at her watch, then at the temperature reading still climbing on the monitor. Do it, she said simply. Ryan, assign whatever engineers Mr. Reed needs. The rest of you, prepare backup plans in case this doesn't work. As the room emptied, Pearson lingered, clearly unhappy. With all due respect, Miss Winters, we're betting the company's future on a janitor's DIY project. Olivia's gaze was unwavering. No, Ryan. We're betting on someone who solved a problem you couldn't. I suggest you help him succeed, rather than wait for him to fail. Left alone with Olivia, Nathan felt the weight of her scrutiny. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am. Save your thanks until after you've saved my servers, Mr. Reed. Yet there was something almost like respect in her voice now. Out of curiosity, Kandahar. What exactly did you do in the military? Electronic warfare systems specialist, Mom. 8 years of service. And now you're mopping floors at Horizon. It wasn't a question, but the implied one hung in the air anyway. Nathan met her gaze steadily. Life takes unexpected turns. When my wife got sick, I needed stability and good health insurance more than career advancement. After she passed, Harper needed consistency more than she needed a father working 80-hour weeks. Olivia absorbed this, her expression unreadable. I'll have purchasing expedite whatever supplies you need, she said finally, turning to leave. Then, almost as an afterthought. My daughter in the lobby this morning. What did you do that helped her so quickly? Sometimes all people need is to be seen, ma'am. To know their feelings matter. Nathan touched his pocket where the stopwatch usually sat. And sometimes they just need to remember to breathe. Something flickered across Olivia's face, recognition, perhaps, of a truth she'd been too busy to acknowledge. But she only nodded once, sharply, and strode from the room, leaving Nathan to begin his improbable rescue mission. The next 90 minutes passed in a blur of focused activity. Nathan, now the unexpected center of attention, directed a small team of engineers in assembling his makeshift bypass system. They made 2 runs to nearby hardware stores for parts, modified existing equipment from the maintenance workshop, and gradually constructed a solution that looked nothing like the sleek technology usually associated with Horizon Dynamics. It was ugly but functional PVC pipes, commercial pumps, and generous amounts of waterproof sealant creating an alternate pathway for the coolant. As they worked, Nathan found himself explaining the process to the younger engineers, who listened with growing respect. His years of practical experience making complex systems work with limited resources in hostile environments proved more valuable than any theoretical knowledge. "All right," he announced finally, tightening the last connection. "Let's start the flow at 25% and monitor for leaks." The improvised system groaned to life. Everyone watched anxiously as coolant began flowing through the bypass. Tense minutes passed, but the connections held, and the temperature monitor began to show a slow but steady decrease. "Increase to 50%, Nathan directed, checking each connection point. "If it holds for 5 minutes, we'll go to 75. By the time Olivia returned to check their progress, the server room temperature had dropped 4 degrees and was continuing to fall. The relief among the engineering team was palpable. "It's working," she observed, surveying the ungainly contraption now snaking across the server room floor. "Will it hold through the demonstration?" "It should hold for 48 hours easily," Nathan confirmed. "After that, you'll want the proper parts installed." Olivia studied him with that same evaluating gaze. "The Tokyo team is connecting in 30 minutes. I want you there, in case anything needs adjustment during the presentation." Nathan glanced down at his maintenance uniform. "Ma'am? There's no time for you to change anyway," she said dismissively. "Besides, I think our investors might appreciate seeing the man who saved the day exactly as he is." As Nathan followed her to the executive floor, he felt strangely dislocated from his usual reality. For 3 years, he'd moved invisibly through these spaces. Now, employees he'd never spoken to nodded in recognition, and executives who'd previously looked through him made eye contact. The Tokyo presentation went flawlessly. The servers performed without a hitch as Olivia demonstrated Horizon's new cloud security protocol to the Japanese investment team. When she introduced Nathan as the specialist who implemented our cooling system redundancy, he simply nodded politely, letting her frame his emergency fix as part of the company's excellent technical contingency planning. After the investors signed off, visibly impressed, Olivia turned to Nathan with something almost like a smile. "Well done, Mr. Reed. It seems we've been underutilizing your talents." "Just doing my job, ma'am." "No," she corrected. "Your job was keeping the floors clean. This was something else entirely." She hesitated, then continued. "I'd like to discuss a different position for you at Horizon. Something more aligned with your actual skills." Before Nathan could respond, her phone rang. The display showed Oakwood Prep, and Olivia's expression tightened. She answered immediately. "This is Olivia Winters." As she listened, her professional composure faltered. "Is she all right?" "Yes, I'll come right away." Hanging up, she turned to her assistant. "Cancel my afternoon. Madison's had some kind of anxiety attack during her presentation. I need to get to the school." "I can have your car brought around," the assistant offered. "The traffic will be terrible with this storm. I'll take the subway, it's faster." She gathered her things hurriedly, then paused, looking at Nathan. "Mr. Reed, we'll continue our discussion tomorrow." Nathan nodded, watching her rush toward the elevator. He thought of Maddie's face that morning, of the stopwatch he'd given her, of his promise that it would help. After a moment's hesitation, he followed. "Miss Winters," he called, catching up to her at the elevator. "If it's all right, I'd like to come with you." Her surprise was evident. "Why would you?" "Because I gave Madison my stopwatch this morning, told her it was lucky. I'd like to make sure she's okay." Olivia studied him, seeming to weigh his sincerity against her instinctive privacy. Finally, she nodded once. "Fine. But this doesn't mean—" "I understand, ma'am. Just want to help." They rode the elevator in awkward silence. In the lobby, Nathan quickly sent a text to Harper's after-school program, explaining he might be late. Then he and Olivia Winters, CEO of Horizon Dynamics, hurried together into the rainy afternoon toward the nearest subway station, an unlikely pair united only by concern for a frightened 10-year-old girl. Oakwood Preparatory Academy exuded wealthy tradition from every brick of its ivy-covered buildings. As Nathan followed Olivia through the ornate entrance, he couldn't help comparing it to Harper's public elementary school with its peeling paint and chain-link fence. Different worlds, he thought, though children's fears looked the same in both. The school counselor met them in the administrative office, her expression professionally concerned. "Miss Winters, Thank you for coming so quickly. Madison is resting in my office. What happened exactly? Olivia asked, her CEO authority firmly back in place despite her evident worry. She was midway through her presentation when she became increasingly agitated. Her breathing grew erratic, and she eventually had to stop. When we tried to have her continue after a break, she became overwhelmed again. Has she had these episodes at school before? Nathan asked before he could stop himself. The counselor glanced at him questioningly. This is Mr. Reed, a colleague, Olivia explained vaguely. He's familiar with Madison's anxiety. I see. Yes, this has happened several times this year, though not usually this severely. Madison puts enormous pressure on herself to perform perfectly. Something like guilt flickered across Olivia's face. I'd like to see her now. The counselor led them to a small office, where Maddie sat curled in an oversized chair, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. Her science project poster board leaned against the wall, impressively professional but incomplete with sticky notes marking sections yet to be presented. Mom! Maddie straightened when they entered, trying to compose herself, then noticed Nathan. You came too? Hey there, he said gently. Heard you had a rough time. I wanted to check on my stopwatch. This earned a small, watery smile. I tried to use it, but I got so nervous I forgot to click it. She pulled the silver timepiece from her pocket. I guess it's not so lucky after all. The thing about luck, Nathan said, crouching beside her chair, is that it works best when you remember to activate it. He took the stopwatch and demonstrated again. Click, breathe in. Click, breathe out. Want to try again? Olivia watched in fascination as her daughter followed Nathan's instructions, her breathing gradually steadying just as it had that morning. The counselor observed with professional interest. That's a very effective grounding technique, she noted. We've been working on similar strategies with Madison. My dad taught me, Nathan explained, not mentioning it had been after he'd returned from war with invisible wounds that sometimes still ached. Simple tools often work best. Could I? Maddie began hesitantly. Could I maybe try my presentation again? Just for you guys. Are you sure, sweetie? Olivia asked. We could reschedule. No, I want to try. With the stopwatch. Her determination was visible despite her lingering anxiety. The counselor nodded encouragingly. I think that's an excellent idea. A small, supportive audience might be perfect. As Maddie set up her poster board, Nathan noticed Olivia checking her watch and typing something on her phone. Work never stopped for her, he realized, even now. Yet she dropped everything to come here progress. Perhaps. My project is called Understanding and Managing Stress Responses in the Adolescent Brain. Maddie began, her voice initially shaky but growing stronger. She clicked the stopwatch, took a deep breath, and continued. What followed was a surprisingly sophisticated presentation for a 10-year-old, complete with brain diagrams and citations from psychological studies. Nathan listened attentively, impressed not just by her knowledge but by her resilience in trying again after failure. When Maddie reached the section about coping techniques, she held up the stopwatch. Some people use physical objects as anchors during anxiety attacks. The familiarity creates a sense of security and helps redirect focus from panic to controlled action. She glanced at Nathan, who gave her an encouraging nod. I've personally found that counting breaths with a timing device can effectively interrupt the amygdala's fear response cycle. By the time she finished, her confidence had fully returned. The counselor applauded enthusiastically, as did Nathan. Olivia's response was more complex, pride mingled with something like wonder, as though seeing her daughter clearly for the first time. That was exceptional, Madison, she said softly. I had no idea you understood all of this so thoroughly. Maddie beamed at the praise. Does this mean I pass? With flying colors, the counselor confirmed. I'll speak with your science teacher about arranging another evaluation for competition consideration. As they prepared to leave, Maddie turned to Nathan. Do you need your stopwatch back now? Nathan considered the silver timepiece that had been his companion through some of his darkest moments. Tell you what, keep it until your next presentation. By then, you might not need it anymore. Outside the school, the rain had finally stopped, leaving the city glistening in late afternoon sunlight. Olivia turned to Nathan with an expression he couldn't quite read. I need to take Madison home now, but I meant what I said earlier. I'd like you to come see me tomorrow about a position change. She hesitated. And thank you. For today. All of it. Just glad I could help, ma'am. Maddie, who had been examining her poster board for damage, looked up suddenly. Mom, can Nathan and his daughter come to my birthday party next weekend? Please? The question clearly caught Olivia off guard. Well, that would be up to Mr. Reed. Nathan smiled at Maddie. That's very kind of you to ask. I'd have to check with Harper, but I think she'd like that. It's going to be at the Science Museum, Maddie added excitedly. We get to sleep over with the dinosaurs. Sounds amazing, Nathan replied, genuinely touched by the invitation, a glimpse into a world Harper rarely had access to. Olivia cleared her throat. Well, we should be going. Mr. Reed, I'll see you tomorrow at 9? I'll be there. As he watched them walk away, Maddie chattering animatedly about her project, Nathan felt a strange sense of possibility opening before him, a door he'd thought permanently closed after Elizabeth's death. The next 2 weeks brought changes Nathan could never have anticipated. Olivia Winters had created a new position for him. Facilities Systems Specialist, reporting directly to her. His salary had nearly doubled, and his hours now accommodated Harper's school schedule. The maintenance staff, who had been his only workplace friends, were both impressed and slightly wary of his rapid ascent, while the engineering team gradually accepted him as one of their own. The most unexpected change, however, came in his interactions with Olivia herself. Their initial meetings had been strictly professional, discussing his responsibilities, the systems he would oversee, his ideas for improving facility operations. But gradually, conversations had extended beyond work. She'd asked about Harper, about his military service, about how he'd managed as a single father. He'd learned about her own journey, the relentless work ethic that had propelled her from middle-class Chicago to Harvard Business School to the executive suite, the marriage that had ended when Madison was just 2, her constant struggle to balance ambition with motherhood. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Nathan arrived early as usual, now dressed in business casual rather than his gray uniform. As he passed through the lobby, he noticed Olivia and Maddie entering together, a sight that had become increasingly common. Maddie spotted him first and waved enthusiastically. Nathan! Look what I got! She proudly displayed a new digital stopwatch with multiple timing functions. Mom got it for me. It has a special anxiety mode that vibrates for breathing patterns. Very impressive, he smiled. Still using the old one too? Sometimes. It's still lucky. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. But I think Mom needs it more than me now. She's been practicing the breathing when she thinks I'm not looking. Olivia rolled her eyes good-naturedly. Apparently I have no secrets anymore. To Nathan, she added, Madison's school called yesterday. She's been selected for the district science competition. That's fantastic, Nathan said sincerely. Harper would love to attend, if that's all right. She's quite the science enthusiast herself. Of course, Olivia replied. Actually, I've been meaning to ask. She glanced at her watch. I have a meeting. We'll talk later. As she walked away, Maddie gave Nathan a knowing look. She likes you.